brushing videos because some people love it and some people hate it. So I tend to stick with what I know works. So anyway, I have a solved case for you tonight, and it is pretty sad. So I am just going to get right into it. This is the case of Wendy von Huben and Jesse Howell. Wendy and Jesse longed for a life beyond the small town where they lived. And that romantic notion led the young lovers to a fateful decision. They were going to leave Illinois and run away together. Wendy grew up near the small farming town of Kankakee, Illinois. In 1995, her family moved to an even smaller community called Woodstock. Woodstock was 100 miles to the north of Kankakee. Wendy had a really hard time adjusting to this move. She had trouble in her new school, and she became quite restless. According to her mother, Laura, Wendy, like most of us, wanted to be older. She wanted to be an adult, but she also just wanted to have fun. In December of 1996, the new town began looking up when Wendy met and fell in love with 19-year-old Jesse. Jesse was already living on his own, and some people called him a drifter. Now, Jesse didn't describe himself that way. He preferred to think of himself as a romantic. His mother, Rebecca, said Jesse wanted to be who he wanted to be. And like many of us, he just couldn't figure out exactly who that was. Jesse made the decision to leave his parents' home and to try life on his own. He thought, I can make it. I can take care of myself. On February 23rd, 1997, just a couple of days after her 16th birthday, Wendy pulled an old trick that I definitely used myself. She told her parents that she was spending the night with a friend, but secretly she and Jesse had other plans. The next day, when she didn't come home like she was supposed to, her family waited a couple of hours, but she never called to tell them where she was. They then tried to call her friend, only to discover that the phone number she had given them did not belong to any of her actual friends. At this point, her parents realize something is terribly wrong. So they call the local police department on each other's nerves. On March 7th, they pulled up to a truck stop, and they all got out, arguing. The other couple decided they'd had enough of Wendy and Jesse, so they get back in the car and drive off, leaving Wendy and Jesse behind. They were nearly 1,500 miles from home, with very little money and zero transportation. Nevertheless, they were able to drop out of sight, and the police lost their trail. About a month later, Wendy's father, William, was at work when he receives a phone call from a homeless shelter in Bradenton. The caller said he worked with a group that dealt with runaway children, and he said that he had found something that William had lost. He told William that Wendy and Jesse had been living under a bridge near Dade City when they were found by this group. Wendy spoke to William on the phone. She was crying, and she said she did not like living on the streets and that she wanted to come home. William sent her $200 to use to catch a bus home, and he was relieved that she would soon be on her way back to him. A couple of days later, Jesse called his parents from a Flying J truck stop in Dade City. He said he and Wendy were going to visit his grandmother in North Carolina, and then they were going to head home. Rebecca tried to press Jesse for more information. However, he said he had to go because he was going to miss his ride. He told his mother, "Don't worry, I'll be fine." And that was the last time that Rebecca ever spoke to Jesse. Wendy and Jesse both picked up the money that was wired to them by their parents. However, they did not board a bus back home to Illinois. 48 hours later, a train engineer spotted a body in the bushes near the railroad tracks in Bellevue, 80 miles north of Dade City, Florida. This body was Jesse. Rebecca felt that their lives had fallen apart. All of their plans for him and their family were suddenly changed, and there was nothing they could do or say to change it and make it back how it was before. Jesse had been killed by blunt force trauma to the head. There was still money in his pocket and a half-smoked cigarette on the ground. Jesse had been struck from behind and apparently had no idea what was coming. There is no sign of struggle at the scene, and that, paired with the fact that there was a clear path showing that his body had been dragged through the grass, indicated to the police that this was a homicide. Now, the crime lab was able to locate a single drop of blood on the cuff of Jesse's jacket that did not belong to Jesse. she believed her daughter witnessed Jesse's murder. But if Wendy was there, and she witnessed Jesse's murder, where did she go? In the days that followed, the Von Hubens and the police distributed thousands of flyers with Wendy's picture. There were numerous sightings, but most of them turned out to be inconclusive and unconfirmed. Finally, an intriguing tip emerged from two homeless men near Jacksonville. In late March, they'd seen a person resembling Wendy come through town with a man named Bob. Bob has since been identified as a man named Bobby Ray Taylor, and he was a railroad rider. These men had known Bob for some time, and they indicated he was very unique because he had only one leg and a prosthesis for the other. He also had a very distinct teardrop tattoo under one eye. More than 2 months passed, and then on the evening of June 4th, the phone rang at the home of Wendy's parents. When Laura answered, the caller immediately hung up. A few minutes later, the phone rang again, and Laura ran back to answer it. They said it was a collect call and asked if she would accept the charges. They then told the caller to identify themselves. And Laura heard, "Mom, it's me. It's me, Wendy." And then she hung up. Laura went next door to call the police. At 8 p.m., the Von Hubens' phone rang again, and William answered. The caller said, "Hi, Dad." She said she was calling from Kankakee, the town where they had lived until 18 months earlier. William asked Wendy where she was in Kankakee, but she said she didn't know. He asked where she was calling from, and she said a Phillips 66 gas station. He asked her if there was a phone number on the phone, and she said no. Everything she said was a yes or no, single word answer. She then said she had to go and hung up. The conversation was so short, William could not be sure that the girl on the phone was Wendy. He hoped that it was, but he just could not be sure. Can you imagine? Now, Detective Sergeant Kurt Rosenquist of the Woodstock Police Department went to Kankakee, and checked all of the payphones at the Phillips 66 gas stations, looking for one that did not have a phone number on it. He found one on a payphone on Indiana Street that did not have a phone number posted in the normal space, and he assumed that this is where the call had been made from. He obtained the surveillance tape from that gas station, and it showed a teenage girl matching Wendy's description. Police estimate that the video was recorded within minutes of the call to the Von Hubens. When Laura saw the tape, she was certain that was her daughter. She said this girl had put on weight, but she could tell it was her. She was sure based on the body language, the way the girl's hair was done, way she put her hands in her pockets and the way that she walked. Now, although Laura was absolutely positive that this girl was Wendy, William, on the other hand, was only about 85% positive. He said yes, there were some frames that he looked at and thought, that's Wendy. But there were others where he couldn't say if it was her or not. And then another complication. Police subpoena phone records and later traced the phone call to a different gas station just 2 miles away. And at that station, there was a flyer with the Von Huben's home phone number on it. Now, police and her family hope that Wendy made that call. However, they suspect that someone may have seen this phone number and called her parents to make a very sick joke. So, what happened to Wendy? Other than the video, authorities have very few clues. Yet they're hopeful she's still out there, somewhere. And with her, the secret to solving Jesse's murder. Police and her family hope she's still alive. In April of 1998, police located Bobby Ray Taylor, and they questioned him at length about Wendy's whereabouts. He admitted to having seen her before, but couldn't recall all the details. And he denied knowing anything about Jesse's murder. So investigators determined he was not involved in this case. In July of 1999, detectives looked into the possibility that a 39-year-old serial killer named Angel Resendez, also known as the Railroad Killer, was involved in Wendy and Jesse's cases. Early in the year 2000, after being contacted by the police, he confessed. He said that he killed them because he believed that they were anti-Christians who believed in witchcraft. He claimed that he met them at a switching station near Jacksonville. They caught a ride with him in a grain car in order to find work picking oranges. When the train stopped at the switching station, Angel and Jesse got out, and he then struck Jesse over the head with a railroad car air brake coupling. After that, he got back in the grain car. 8 hours later, and several miles away, he ordered Wendy out. He assaulted her, strangled her, and buried her. The identity of the murder weapon in Jesse's case, oh gosh, I'm so sorry, had never been released to the public. Angel gave authorities directions to where he'd buried Wendy. On July 15th, a search team following his directions found her remains buried in a shallow grave in Oxford. She was wrapped in a blanket and a camouflage jacket. The grave was 15 miles south of the spot where Jesse had been found. Wendy still had her jewelry on, and DNA testing confirmed her identity. In exchange for his confession and information that led to Wendy's recovery, Angel was granted immunity from the prosecution in her and Jesse's cases. Now hold on, don't get alarmed. Angel confessed to 20 murders, and he was convicted of the murder of Houston doctor Claudia Penton. He was sentenced to death in that case. authorities were able to verify at least 15 of the murders that Angel committed, dating all the way back to 1986. Fingerprints and DNA connected him to some of these murders, and Angel Resendez was executed in June of 2006. So, that is all that I have on this case for you tonight. I think it is so sad because all that Wendy and Jesse wanted was to be together, to be happy and together. I don't know why they felt like they had to run away from their families to do that. And it does make me incredibly sad because I feel like their families really, like, you know, when we read cases about runaways, there's always something going on, some reason why this person didn't want to live at home or be at home. But I couldn't find anything like that about Wendy or Jesse. I couldn't find any information that their parents didn't want them to be together. So I don't know why they felt like, and I'm sorry if you just heard my tummy rumble, they felt like they had to run away to be together. The life of a drifter is hard. You have to sleep under bridges, and you don't know where your next meal is going to come from. So I have to wonder why they did this. And I don't have an explanation to give you, even though I wish that I did. But it's sad to me, just like always, to see these young lives just be extinguished over nothing. It clearly wasn't a robbery because Angel left money in Jesse's pocket. I have to think that his motive was he wanted to assault Wendy, and he knew Jesse would stop him. And he was a killer. We might cover some more of his cases later on, but I'll have to do some research to see if there's enough details. So, if you're still listening, I would like for you to tell me what you think of mic brushing and cupped whispers. I did a little cupped whispering on my Patreon last week, and they do seem to like it. I tend to do what I like, and it is mic brushing and cupped whispers. But I know that not everyone is for that. I have plans to do like a random trigger video on my Patreon this week, if I can find time to film something that long, because I would want it to be long. But I would love to know what sort of random triggers you guys like as well. I lately have been feeling very, don't take this the wrong way, but trapped in the new crime genre. Not that I want to stop, just that I'd like to explore a little more. I am already thinking about Spooktober because I see Halloween stuff everywhere and it makes me so happy. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do 3 or 4 videos a week this year, but it will definitely be all spooky content all month. So, I want to thank you guys so much for being here. I'm gonna take a page from Nicole's book, and I'm gonna end this video with a couple of minutes of just mic brushing. If that's not your thing,